SpongeBob vibes.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Right, we're live.
We're live. We're back.
Back again.
Twice in a month.
Dos.
So, busy time.
You actually have
Busy time. Lots to talk about tonight.
Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed. Pascha is upon us. The feasting season.
Yeah, we're in Bright Week.
We are. So we've got a couple of bits to go through tonight. In terms of what we're smoking, and what we're smoking it in.
I've got the Falcon tonight. It's the classic with the
The big chimney.
yeah, the chrome stem
Yeah.
in a bent, and I got the big old chimney.
Yeah.
And in it, I'm afraid it's nothing new, guys. It's the Burley number one in the cigar leaf. But I will say, slightly different this time. I've done goofed, right? So every time I was smoking this, what I was doing is I was getting a tin, and I was mixing up eyeballing like half and half.
Yeah.
Like the Burley flake and the cigar leaf. I thought, I'm tired of this. I was down to one full tin, and I had a full packet. So it was a 2 ounce tin and a 4 ounce bag of Burley. And I was like, I'm just going to rub out all this Burley, put it in a mixing bowl, chuck in all the cigar leaf, and mix it all up. And I did that, and you know what? The ratio is off. I realised that I need more Burley. I think I need at least 1 for 1.
Yeah.
Because it's burning too quickly.
1 to 1's a good ratio.
So what I'm doing to counteract that is I'm really putting the squeeze on it.
That's a good
And that slows it down just enough to get some flavour. But next time, I'm going to try at least 1 for 1, if not more, on the flake ratio.
Yeah, I think that's a good move. See, I'm also smoking Burley.
Yeah.
I'm also going for Old Faithful. It's Semois Caporal, Belgian Burley. With again, that is 1 to 1, but it burns fast.
Yeah,
so I've preloaded another pipe to switch onto, so I can drop straight onto that. Just noticed we've got Highland Duncan, which is great to have on because he's caught us just at the right time. Hope we both had a great Easter.
Welcome back, brother.
We really did. Christ is risen. We've had a great time.
You've been good. I hope you did too, man.
Busy, but busy good. So I've got that smoking away in my Nordin freehand. Old Faithful. Love this pipe. Love its like ergonomics. Just feels right. It's starting to colour up really nicely now. It's kind of
beautiful
part of the furniture, so that's good. What's in the glass?
We've got it's the Templeton rye, right?
Templeton 6 years.
6 years, yeah. So we had a glass of this on. We had some good smokes over recently.
We had some good smokes.
So we had a glass of this with the Tabernacle Broadleaf double Corona.
Yeah, and that's a whopping stick.
Yeah, if I remember right, it's 54 ring gauge, and I think it's 6.5 inch long.
We were at it, and it's a slow burner. And we were at it probably a good hour, weren't we?
Oh, yeah, 90 minutes over.
That was great. We had some decent weather. It was still a bit of nip in the air, but it was still nice. It was dry. We also had an all decked out.
Yeah, we had the Drew Estate, Sungrown Maduro, all decked out. That was lovely.
Just wonderful stick. Very strong.
Chocolate bomb. Yeah.
Chocolate bomb.
And lovely. The way it's presented as well.
Yeah, and I felt it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, with the two bands.
Yeah, and the gold ribbon across the foot. Yeah.
And it was. It was a really interesting smoke. Yeah, it was interesting smoke as well. I found that like the chocolate bomb mellowed out sort of a third to halfway in to just like a wonderful, dark, rich. Sort of Maduro, not quite Maduro because obviously not Maduro leaf, but but just a really nice, full-bodied, leathery, mahogany sort of smoke as you went halfway through.
Very rich.
Yeah.
Not the most complex, but for what it does in terms of the flavour is intense, rich.
Yeah.
That San Andres Mexican Maduro leaf, absolutely beautiful. And then we also had the Padron Maduro.
That was a surprise package.
Yeah. Which is the first Padron I've smoked, although I've heard a lot of good about Padron, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Beautiful.
So did we both have that in the morning for breakfast?
Yeah,
I think we did. So that was Pascha morning. So we'd both been up all night, getting liturgy and getting some communion, and we kicked off at. So we finished up at about 3 in the morning. Got back, got some sleep, got up, had some eggs and bacon, and some coffee and a smoke, and that stick was just a delight. It was very strong for its size. very slow burning. I mean, we were talking probably, good sort of 3/4 of an hour to 50 minutes for a small smoke, probably a 4-inch.
About Robusto size, wasn't it?
Kind of a Robusto size, and what in terms of the ring gauge, it's like about 30s?
Yeah, about 36, I think, yeah.
So it wasn't a massive stick at all, but
No.
the draw was just a delight. It virtually smoked itself, it was so good. Loved that smoke. Again, like very rich chocolate notes, but again it got like plenty of mahogany and leather.
Oak,
just great with a cup of coffee, paired really nicely with that.
So 3 good steaks over the course of the weekend, which we've been off the steaks for the duration of
because it was it felt like a bit of an indulgence. So the on the afternoon of and the evening of, so we've got started getting stuck into the rye. We've also got, and we've very kindly brought round, is small batch 10-year Whistle Pig, which again is just a cracking drop.
Which Anthony from Bourbon Neophyte said he's not a huge fan of, but personally,
we like it.
We're into it.
We're down for it. So, in terms of what we've got for tonight, I thought it'd be nice to kind of talk a bit about Pascha, about the journey into Pascha, like the Feast of Feasts for us, and why it's such a big one, the kind of stuff that we do throughout.
Yeah, so, and when we say in Pascha, we're referring to Easter.
Yeah.
So, like most languages, Easter is some form of Pascha, right? Except for English and German, where it's Easter. So, whenever we say Pascha, we're referring to Easter.
It's Easter, so it starts off like with, I mean, obviously you've got a whole period of Lent that goes up towards it. So we've got a 40-day fast. What goes better with a fast than another fast? We have another 7-day fast bolted straight onto the back of it, which takes us from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, Pascha. And maybe it's worth sort of picking up, obviously, we talk a lot about Lent, about sort of giving stuff up and spending a bit of time in reflection, and we just said about we're not drinking really expensive stuff. We might switch to beers, which I did quite a bit, on the occasion. And obviously we went into back to the pipe instead of maybe sticks, and then bolted onto that at the end of Lent. That sort of builds up to Holy Week. Holy Week then becoming another 7-day fast where things kind of intensify, and it's really because we had services all the way through this year, and it flew by. It absolutely flew by. And we got so it starts off on the bridegroom services. That's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Everything's brought forward, so the matin services are done the night before. There's the kind of like watchfulness, this like preparation, waiting for Christ to come, and it's all about preparation.
And it's easily the most beautiful service of the year, in my opinion.
So good.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it.
And they take a different kind of form as well. Those Holy Week services, very somber. The tones are different. They're a little bit darker and more sort of minor keys. The lights are down low. We'll just have one candle in the lampada at the end. It's really nice. And then all of the other sort of services. So we go into Maundy on Thursday, and we had an unction service on the Wednesday, and all of these things are designed to sort of build you up towards Good Friday. Good Friday we have 2 services: the shroud where we carried Christ's body around, and been took down from the cross.
I was so honoured to get chosen to be one of the carriers of the epitaphios or the shroud, which I haven't done since we did it.
When we got cosmated. That year, 2017. And it's always nice. That was good. And then we then Saturday we had a baptism in the morning, which was nice. We received a whole family. That was really cool. And then in the evening it all kicks off 11 o'clock. We all make our way to church. Dark, minor key stuff as we're going back over the the ending point of Christ being taken down from the cross by Joseph of Arimathea and being laid in the tomb. The myrrh-bearing women come with spices, and that sort of takes us up to the midnight office. And at the midnight point, then it's Sunday, and Christ is risen. And then that point, we all go outside, we process, we've got candles, we take the light that Christ brings, and then we come back in and everything's on. All the lights are on, all the candles are lit, and it's show time.
Yeah. And this year I made a couple of lanterns, because there's a part just before you go out where the priest brings out the holy fire.
Yeah.
And everyone takes a light from it, and you walk outside and every year that I've done that, it blows out at some point. It's like this year, I'm not trying to lose my holy fire. So I made a couple of lanterns out of like old tobacco jars and just some like jute twine.
Yeah.
And it worked.
It did it.
Yeah.
It did the job. So yeah, it did for us, and then that whole Paschal Matins, it's about Christ being reborn. He comes back from the dead. It's all, like the glory of Christ's resurrection. It's like it's the central tenet of the Christian faith.
Yeah.
And then straight after that, what better way to break your fast? A 42-day fast, 47-day fast, than a divine liturgy.
Yeah.
So we go straight into the divine liturgy, and so which our priest, Father Jonathan, served for us. In double quick time this year, he smashed that out pretty DQ.
Yeah.
And then we take the body and blood, we take communion, and then we go back and get some sleep, and then it's party time.
Which we did.
Which we duly did. So in terms of what that sort of led to, was I put some because we had a service on Sunday afternoon for Agape Vespers, Agape being the sort of holy love. So it's a means for us to sort of see Pascha out properly and put the capstone on it. But also it was a means for us to tidy up, because we'd just left all the stuff in the church. Right. The church was full of stuff. So it meant we could tidy everything away, and then we all reassembled back here. And we feasted. We feasted. Lamb being the traditional meat.
Yeah, which was great, really good. My little girl ate a lot of it.
She did, yeah. The kids did really well,
which is not usual.
Yeah,
so.
Got the joint from the local butchers, some rosemary and some garlic, and roasted that for a good 4 hours or so. That was pretty killer. And then in terms of how we back that up, we got some port. We got a nice 10-year Tawny.
We snuck outside towards the end.
We did. We managed to get a stick in. We got that Toro in that tabernacle. Yeah, that was cracking. Cracked open the rye, the Templeton, and just had a really nice afternoon and evening.
Yeah, lovely day.
So that kind of took us all the way through. So now it's still Pascha. We celebrate Pascha. So this week is Bright Week.
Yeah. So
it means no fasting, because the bridegroom's with us. So we're eating, drinking, we're having fun, which is why we. What better way to celebrate than having two casts this month?
2 casts a month.
Yeah. So we're back on it. So we've got so we're celebrating with you guys too. It was a cracking time, really cracking time. We both got, so we hinted at it before, just mentioned it before and glossed over it a little bit, but we both got chrismated at Pascha, which would have been the traditional time.
Yeah.
And that the purpose of Lent was not to for the faithful to fast. It was for catechumens, the people who were going to be received into the church, to fast.
And then some little goody two shoes went, I want to do that too.
I can do it better. I can do it better.
Oh, let's all do it. Oh yeah.
Thanks. Let's have more. Yeah, teacher, I think we should have more. So Martin Prince dobbed us in, and we ended up all doing it. It is obviously good for us.
No, for real.
So we'd. But it always has kind of a double celebration for Harry and I.
Anniversary.
Because it's our anniversary.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the date is. We always mark it at Pascha. We received on the Sunday night, and then we had communion on the Sunday morning.
Yeah, we did.
So it's a double celebration. It's a double win.
I always remember hearing. It would have been Father Jonathan, Deacon Jonathan at the time, saying like the newly illumined. Dionysius and the newly illumined Jeremy.
Yeah.
Praying for us.
Yeah.
On that Sunday morning. I always remember that.
Coming down to the front. Had to make our first confession on the Friday.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty brutal, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, you did it before me, and the day that we were scheduled to do it, I genuinely was sick. I was genuinely sick, and I told Father Adrian, look, I'm sick, I can't come to church to do it. And I was so worried that it was looking like a little weasel out.
Did we go to his, I think we had like a little chapel, didn't he, in his back garden?
I did it in church, I did it in the chapel. Because I think maybe you went to his house like we were supposed to.
Yeah.
But I did it after one service, probably in Holy Week. Must have been Holy Week,
Yeah, that's a tough ask.
Yeah, that's a big one, yeah.
Because it's everything, right? It's everything from your childhood, and it's like inevitably there's going to be things that you forget and that come back to you later. But that was
But yeah, there's things that stick out, like you know, for anyone, you just say like, oh, you know, where did you done goof, and you'll know something straight away.
And I done goofed a lot. I mean, there was a lot of goofing being done. So yeah, that was pretty.
Yeah, a lifetime confession is tough.
Man, yeah, for sure. And then the idea being that, you know, yes, we have periods where it's been a while since we do one, but we try and do them fairly regularly, and then it becomes sort of more of not a routine is the wrong word, but it becomes a good habit.
Yeah,
I think it's maybe a better way.
And just to set the scene, by the way, if you're like a Western fellow watching this, you've probably got an idea about confession where you're in a booth and there's a screen between you and the priest. No, it's not like that.
No. In fact, just to explain a little bit about what it would have been back in the day.
So back in the day, it would have been like a public thing. Like, you would have done it to the whole congregation. And back in the day, if I understand correctly, and you know, I don't want to say anything wrong, but confession, it was about reuniting you back to the church. So if you'd done something really naughty,
heinous,
really heinous, and that's something that would technically take you outside of the fold, that was the public means of bringing you back in. But there is a strong monastic tradition in Orthodoxy, and the monastic tradition was that you would be a monk and you'd have a spiritual father, a starets, an elder, confessor, and daily, or probably daily, right?
And they do,
yeah, you'd be confessing to that guy. And because of the strong influence of monasticism on Orthodoxy, the laity, that's kind of gone into the laity. So what I've been told on good authority by a good man, a good priest, is that 6 weeks at most. You don't want to leave it more than 6 weeks. But perhaps more frequently if you need to. But
I think a month's good if you can do a month. But yeah, it's I think that's good advice. Yeah, a month, 4 to 6 weeks. I think that's fair. You'll have done so. I'll have done something within 4 to 6 weeks that I'm definitely not proud of.
For sure.
So yeah, it's one of them. So yeah, it was and obviously that's like the start of our journey, but also that still remains all the way through, even for the faithful. They will also be invited to come to one of the services. Typically, it might be the unction, not the unction service, although you're supposed to get confession before that.
Right.
But anyway, I think I had. Or no, it's either you're confessing or you're going to be confessing soon. I confess the next day, I think, until Thursday. But the idea being that during Holy Week you're going to make a good confession. You know, you have a big one around sort of Maundy Thursday for like the washing of the feet, like the washing of the soul, or the Good Friday. You know, between those two services, the carrying of the shroud into the lamentations by the tomb. So that sort of tradition, even for yes, it was for catechumens, but we still retain that now. We both made confession before taking communion on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And bro, I'll tell you something. Whilst we're talking about the lamentations, there was some of the hymnography around Pascha and around Holy Week. How it digs into you asked a question in the WhatsApp group, and I'd also picked up on something that I found really interesting. So do you want to just go into the one about that you picked up on with Mary?
Yeah, so the one that I picked up on is, I remember Father Jonathan would have been deacon back then. Like, we had a Facebook group back in the day, and I distinctly remember Father Jonathan posting this like icon of Christ carrying the cross on the Via Dolorosa, and his mother Mary kind of like moving after him, kind of like reaching out. and looking, forlorn, and then like Father Jonathan posted this text, and I can't remember it verbatim, but she's saying to him like, oh, like, where are you going? Like, don't go where I can't go. I'm gonna follow you wherever. Like, are you hurrying back to Cana? Is there another wedding?
Is there another wedding?
Yeah. And it's just,
man, it gets you right.
Just rips your heart out. Yeah.
Kicks you right in the feels.
Yeah.
So Highland Duncan is off to get his daughter for bed. He's loaded a ball. Oh, lad.
Good night.
It's the magic time. So yeah, it kicks you right in the feels, and then the other one that kicked me right in the feels, but in the kind of the other way, is that there's a point during the canon that we then repeat for Saturday night into Sunday morning, in the midnight office, towards the midnight office. The end of, there's a point where Christ is stood, and the canon is hymnography, but told from Christ's perspective and from Mary's perspective. Sort of these two sort of refrains riffing on each other.
Yeah.
These two perspectives riffing on each other with the refrains in between. And man, it's so brutal. It's like Christ is stood there in hell. He's smashed the doors down. He's covered in his bloodied winding sheet in his clothes, covered in blood, but like shining with glory. And it's this with the crazy look in his eye. It's gonna go down.
Yeah.
And now it's going down. And hell quakes. Satan quakes. The demons fearing.
Yeah.
He's come down, and like they realise then what they've done, what's happened. That hell takes a body and finds God.
Yeah.
Just amazing hymnography. I mean, I'm not doing it justice by a long, long way. Just like beautiful hymnography and the way that they describe it. So yeah, it's a great time. It's my favourite time of year anyway. Spring. It's around sort of new life. The flowers are starting to bud and the flowers are coming out. There's a nice smell in the air. The weather's starting to warm up a little bit. We've had pretty good weather this spring, man. It's been a nice
last
spring.
couple of weeks have been very nice for the UK.
Yeah. Good 16, 17, like 60 degrees out for the guys in stateside. Yeah,
Toasty,
yeah, balmy. So yeah, it's been great. We've had a great time.
Yeah, and Easter Sunday itself was just beautiful.
Yeah,
just beautiful. It was just the right temperature. It was bright.
Yeah.
It was absolutely lovely. Couldn't have asked for a better day.
Perfect. And so, kind of on a very loosely related topic, we'll come back to the relation maybe a little bit later on as we make the points. But maybe about sort of rebirth and new things. So I've recently I'm just about to join a new firm. I'm leaving a construction firm and I'm hopping onto the other side to go work for an architectural firm. And so I've kind of got architecture on the brain a little bit at the minute. Not least because during Holy Week I took the week off, and in one of my downtime periods I watched some Japanese anime called Now. Blam, I hear it is described as.
All right.
Blame is how it is written.
It's like Blame, yeah.
Blame, it's based Blame. By a manga animator called Nihei. I can't remember his first name or his second name, but Nihei is the guy who draws for it. It's on Netflix, and originally it was a series of manga books, like graphic novels that have been like compiled into like a truncated sort of Netflix film. But man, I absolutely loved it. His style is so good. And he was initially an architect when he first started out. He was a draftsman, and he's a big fan of like sort of heterodoxical architecture, and it really shows through. It really shows through. So the place itself, the concept in the film or the books is that it's a long way into the future. It's a bit sort of cyberpunky. It's a long way into the future. Humanity has been sort of scattered to these little pockets of space. It's kind of, it is still Earth, sort of, but like the whole solar system, the concept of the solar system has changed. That there is just this city that has grown out of AI, and it's basically self-built.
Right.
That humanity started it off, and it's taken on sentience and has grown and grown and grown and grown to the point where it now sees something happens. There's a lot that is unspoken, at least in the film. I think it digs a lot deeper in the books, but there's an event has happened, and that this city, once it's become self-aware, sees humanity as a threat. And so it releases this thing called the Safeguard, which is like a security protocol with these weird looking robots that sort of walk kind of on all fours. They've got like a humanoid face, but like these blank expressions. They're almost a bit like the dispassionate angels, is what I remembered. You know, when you see St. Michael spearing the dragon through. It was St. George's Day for the new calendarists yesterday. Happy feast, everybody, for that. And you see images of and icons of St. George when he's slaying the dragon, dispassionate.
Yeah.
They look very much like that. And that the thing that really struck me about it was about the space that this place was set in, that the city was set in, particularly about liminal space, where these liminal space being like these transitory areas, places that you would typically kind of just use to go from point A to point B. But between point A and point B, you've got 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4. You've got this transitory link. And it was just fascinating, man, because these spaces are enormous.
Yeah.
It's all effectively liminal space.
Right.
And it's really unsettling.
So that's like an inversion, because obviously in normal life, the liminal space is in the minority.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, to tie it back, like, we have liminal space, which is the narthex. That's like,
that's it.
That's the liminal space between the outside world and the church, and there's a space in between.
Yeah.
And in days past, that is where the catechumens would
stay,
take the service.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they would only be received. They say the doors.
That's when they get closed.
That's right. Yeah, and they'll let catechumens depart.
Yeah,
and then the faithful remain, and they stay in the main part of the church, the nave. That's a cracking point. So this concept of space, this like liminal space, these vast liminal spaces, makes it really unsettling. And this sense of scale, like the city is like it goes from where Mercury is to like Jupiter. It's just colossal. It's unthinkably huge, and this sense of scale is really intimidating and unsettling and abnormal. And it's that kind of thing. So this guy was a big fan of a guy called Lebbeus Woods, another heterodoxical architect, and he was also sort of fascinated with the effects of man on environment and environment on man, this sort of synergetic relationship. But I realised that there's a lot of this stuff that I already really like, sort of getting sort of semiotics, like these codal messages that are coming through, things like in what you mentioned earlier on about the non-Euclidean space and non-Euclidean geometry within spaces. Lovecraftian, very Lovecraftian. If you want to just give us a bit about that.
Yeah, so Lovecraft was big on the non-Euclidean geometry. I mean, it's one of the memes, right? Like when you think of you think of like Eldritch, you think of Impossible Vistas, non-Euclidean geometry. So, like, I think like probably the core example is like you brought up the Nameless City, where I think it's Howard Carter, right? Or maybe it's another character, but he stumbles across this city that's been buried under the sand in Arabia somewhere. And the other one is when the Norwegian sailor Gustav, he stumbles upon R'lyeh with his crew, the sunken city where Cthulhu sleeps, and it's talking about how they, for whatever reason, it's re-emerged the city. I can't remember why, but they sort of crash land on there. And they spend some time walking around it, and it's one of those things where it's impossible to like convey it in words, but you can only just get the idea across and hope that it lands in some way. But you can just imagine like angles don't really add up, and you let's say you've been walking down this one corridor for it feels like 10 minutes, and then when you exit and you look back and it's only like a couple of meters long, things like that. Just I mean, if you wanna get a bit of an idea for it, just go on YouTube and search non-Euclidean geometry, and you can get these simulations.
Yeah.
Where it gives you a bit of an idea of what it would feel like to experience it. But the idea is that these human beings, these mortals who are completely unprepared, have passed from the familiar into a completely alien environment.
But it's still supposed to be Earth. Like with real air, it was supposed to be. It's still on Earth.
Yeah.
But it's not like anything on Earth. It's completely alien. And Lovecraft's got a great way of just nailing it down for like lay language. It's like all the angles are wrong.
Yeah.
It just feels odd. And I think some of the 40k writers, Dan Abnett especially, when he goes into this quite heavily on one of the Eisenhorn novels, and they go to a planet which is it's been tainted by the warp, which again is like this feeling of like this sense of other, very Lovecraftian, and like there's no symmetry. It feels weird. The Astartes, the Space Marines that are out there, are freaked out by it. These are like examples, superhuman examples of physical specimens of beings. They can't deal with it to start with, and they have to kind of get readjusted to it. They find it really, really unsettling, and it's this very, very abnormal and unsettling place, and that sort of sense of other space, I think I'm just a massive fan of. And the other thing as well that it, again linking back to 40k, was this sense of scale. And when we look at sort of architecture now, and I look at old like cathedrals and churches, I'm thinking in this country, places like York Minster, Lincoln cathedrals like this a little bit. You look up and you just keep looking and keep looking and keep looking and keep looking, and there is detail and craftsmanship and beauty, right the way up to the top of the building.
And it's supposed to, and I think Gregorian chant is also designed to do this. It's supposed to convey to you the feeling of disappearing into the ether.
Yeah.
Up towards the heavens.
Yeah.
And like the way the acoustics and like the chant, the tone of the chant just kind of emanates and then just dissipates into the ether.
Yeah.
I think that's what the architecture is supposed to convey. And it's the same, we were just talking before this about the traditional Orthodox architecture with the square, the 4 square walls on the foundations representing the earth, the realm of structure and matter, and then on top the circular dome, the circle representing eternity, because there's no beginning and no end, representing the heavens, but then also these cupolas, these domes, which again disappear into the ether, point up towards the
and then for here, to kind of make the comparison here, you look up in Westminster Cathedral or in York Minster, and you look up and there's these stained glass windows that have got iconography of heaven, of what is going on in heaven. And then in Orthodox cathedrals, you've got these amazing icons and frescoes that are up in, like built into and painted into the domes, again to draw your eye upwards. And it kind of got me thinking about this, like the concepts of modern architecture, post-war, postmodern architecture. I think maybe is a better way of describing it. It was all about just get the buildings built, functional spaces, and that if a building didn't have function uber alles, right? If it didn't have function, everything else was kind of, it doesn't matter about its form. It's functionless form, in which case it's ugly. And what that's ended up being like is like you go around, we've got what is like the walkie-talkie or the Shard, or which is supposed to be like amazing examples of architecture.
Burj Khalifa.
Yeah. And any of the guys that use BIM modelling for stuff, it's like BIM level 2. It's like a block, right? So BIM level 3, you might have a block and a door or some windows. Like BIM level 4, you've got like ramparts and and to like the detail, this level of detail that's built into the into the facades and that forms this building. That's all lost.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at, like, in this country, we're lucky to have like old castles, which would have been primarily defensive structures,
functional,
but which are beautiful to look at. I mean, look at like Bolsover Castle.
Yeah,
like but primarily defensive structures.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But even then, they weren't willing to do away with the aesthetic.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a great shout. And again, like similar when I think of like Petropavlovsk in St. Petersburg, St. Peter's fortress, and that was the same. It was a castle within the sort of the not quite within the city walls, but almost within the city walls, and it was like a city within a city, and even that was like beautiful spires and modern. It was in the modern style, not postmodern style. But it was in the modern style, sort of. What would it be? Sort of 18th century, 19th century. So maybe not quite modern, but more modern than sort of classical architecture. But it was very, still very beautiful. There's still like detail and craftsmanship that's sort of built into it. All designed to draw the eye upwards. You look up, like these massive skyscrapers and massive tower blocks, and it's just row after row after row after row of just glazed facades. There's nothing to it. And I was thinking, well, if the function of a beautiful building like a cathedral was supposed to inspire and draw your eye upwards, surely like that's the most important function of that building. It's one of the most important functions of that building.
Yeah.
Which for people who go and spend some time out in the city centre and you see out in the cathedral squares, there's nice places to sit often, and you can go and sit and have your lunch, you can have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee somewhere, and be in the space, and share the space of this amazing building.
100%, man.
That's a function which has been largely forgotten. It's
Yeah.
ignored. It's like it's almost valueless. There's no value attached to that.
Yeah, you're right, man. And we were talking about this a little bit, and I noticed this. We went to London recently, and you can see this in all the major cities in England, and the major cities of Europe, like Rome and Barcelona and places like that. The public space, not so much anymore, because a lot of this like brutalist and kind of function over form architecture has taken place, but these public spaces used to be beautiful. You can see these old beautiful buildings. You can see them in London, you can see them in Sheffield, you can see them in Manchester, and like I said, the European cities, and that creates a public space where you're constantly being reminded of beauty, and that is, it's turning the metaphysical eye upwards.
Yeah.
If you build these ugly public spaces, don't be surprised when people behave in ugly ways.
Right.
Space, right.
Because what are you associating with?
Yeah.
You're associating with nothingness. So it's very, it's plain. It's uninspiring.
Yeah.
If you've got spaces which are inspiring, like landmarks which are inspiring, like you kind of build a connection. Like in Chesterfield where we live, called like the Spireites. Like it's all about the spire. It's all about the church. What the church looks like, because it's got a crooked spire, and it's a massive landmark.
Yeah.
And people come around to sort of see it. That has like an inherent connection for people who live here.
Yeah.
Even if you're not from
It's
it,
a focal point.
but it's a focal point. And I dare say the same, like like in York, the football team is called the Minster Men, right? And I'm sure like there's a load of examples that we could go into that of these buildings that represent the people who are living there, and those people identify those landmarks as being symbols, if you like, of where they live, or
absolutely.
icons of where they live.
And just on like a purely practical, like pragmatic sort of level, if the public space is beautiful and geared toward and designed towards inspiring beauty, just on a practical level, people are going to want to spend time there, right? And that means I'm going to get to know my neighbor. It means I'm going to get to know people. That's going to bring people together. That's going to build a healthy society.
There's a community effect.
And like there's a theory in like criminology called the broken window theory, and it's like there's a broken window in a neighborhood, and it goes unrepaired. You're going to get more broken windows. You're going to get graffiti. You're going to get trash streets, because it's like that slippery slope thing. You let go a little bit, and the rest goes. You bring a little bit of that ugliness into the outside space, and then the rest follows. And the opposite has got to be true. You beautify the area. You put time into the architecture. This is the thing that people criticize about the church. They say, why are they spending all this? And it's what Judas says in the Bible way. So in the story where the penitent woman, she takes the bowl of the perfumed oil, really expensive, and she cracks it. over Jesus. Is it his head or his feet?
There's 2 stories, 1 head and 1 feet.
And anyway, she anoints Jesus with it.
Yeah.
And Judas is like, why did you allow that? Could have sold that, could have fed the poor. But people have lost the importance, the sense of importance of beauty. They don't have the mindset like of a medieval peasant that would have happily tithed to the church, to gild it, and to have these golden, discus and spears and chalice.
It was sacred. It was sacred to them. There was inherent value, like almost invaluable, right? This inherent value. They were living tough lives. They were probably in self-built dwellings. Either in brick houses, early brick houses, or before that wattle and daub. And it was that those people were then going to these places, these buildings that were, you're absolutely right, community spaces that people would co-inhabit. Okay, we've got Bearded Kennison. So, Kennesian, I beg your pardon. So, fellas, our best conversations. Congrats on the new job. Thank you very much. I can't wait to start. We've got.
Welcome back, brother.
Yeah, good to see you again. I've got a couple of weeks left to finish up, and then I start in June. I can't wait. Duncan, walked away from Christianity 15 years ago. My others that still have faith and are strong in it. Whatever the source, very interested in hearing others' paths of faith. Yeah, well, it's. I don't think there was anybody more of an edgelord. I don't describing you as an edgelord at all, Duncan. That's not. No, let me rephrase that. I was a terrible atheist. I was angry and bitter towards people, and I was as far away removed from the faith as it was probably likely to get.
Yeah, me too.
Cringy.
I was cringy with it. I think there are 2 kinds of atheists. There's like the atheist that's kind of like where just any kind of religion just didn't really figure into it. Yeah. But then there's the other one who's the other atheist, which is what I was. Yeah, which is like actively just triggered by it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what I was. And it's I think it's those kinds of people that are actually really just begging to be convinced, which is what I was.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Just begging for it.
I was. Yeah,
so
it's true. It's going to have been a casino. Yeah, good. But yeah, it's. We get people who've been in part of the church and then have left and then come back. It happens. But it's all good. We've got room for people's views on it. So the sense of just going back to just for a moment, a little bit of a tangent on the flask of alabaster oil, the alabaster flask of oil. So she said that she spent 300 denarii on that flask of oil. And that flask of oil was in Matthew's Gospel, I think it is, or it might be Luke's. They describe it as spikenard, oil of spikenard. Well, spikenard is a variety of a fragrant plant. I think it's related to myrrh, but it only grows in the Himalayas.
All right.
It's the only place on earth it grows. The Himalayas being what? Mountains. So they're very high up, and in the what Father Seraphim in Mull describes as the thin spaces. So there's very little between man and God up there, right? Right. It's from hundreds, thousands of miles away, so it's expensive to get across. Obviously, they would have been on the Silk Route, I guess, through Turkey or modern day Turkey, and the Arabs would have traded through, and the Chinese would have traded through. But it would have been very expensive to get. But how expensive? To put it in context, 300 a denarius was a tenth of an ounce of silver, right? And that was a day's pay for 12 hours hard labour. And it was 300 of those. So that's nearly a year's worth of salary. So that's anything between sort of 20 to 50k, right? Depending on what you're pulling. And that's it's a phenomenal amount of money. Yeah. For those people who were living in Jerusalem, an unthinkable amount of money. And so he was stunned that he would, waste such a lot of stuff. But to her, the value wasn't in the oil inherently; the value was on the person that she was anointing. Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of make that clear. But the thing about with Jews, and we hear it a lot, it's like, oh, well, why don't why don't we just just spend the money on on the poor, on the homeless? Like, yeah, it's not a new argument. We've heard it. We've heard that before. Yeah. But then just coming back again a little bit to what you were saying about the broken spaces, when things start to get broken, there was an interesting thing about the guy Libius Woods, and he said about war impacting spaces, that war creates spaces. Yeah. And that his perspective was, which I don't know if I agree with it or not actually, it's kind of, but it's definitely one that I'm thinking a bit about at the minute. He designed a tower block in Sarajevo after the war with between the Bosnians and the Serbs, the Croats and Serbs. This building got an absolute hiding, smashed to bits after an airstrike, and he rebuilt it. But instead of rebuilding it as it was, he rebuilt it around how the building became when it was bombed. So he brought the functionality back to the space, but left all the. So it's like it was all scarred, but he made those scars into something that was functional.
Right.
It's pretty. I'll have to see if I can post a couple of pics up on the chat, but it's like nothing else I've ever seen, and he's done it a couple of times. I think he did some stuff in New Zealand as well. Very different. But he was also a big influence on Nihei, the guy who did Blam. Okay. Yes, this idea of like broken spaces, and I also see it a little bit in gaming. So and I picked up with you on BioShock.
Yeah.
BioShock on the first game was like you're in this beautiful Art Deco environment, which is, it's gorgeous. Like, the way that it's been designed is just beautiful. You've got these. It's very sort of like Titanic-esque. Right? Yeah. And you see all the pictures of what a Titanic looked like inside. These beautiful brass and chrome sort of designs and reliefs. And in the second game, you go back to Rapture, and it started to drop to pieces. It's been partially destroyed, but it's still functional, but it functions in a different way. And then on the third game, Infinite, which wasn't quite as popular, but I think it's still a pretty decent game. And that's all set in. It's set before the first two BioShock games, and it's set in a city called Columbia, which is like in the clouds. It's all in the air. And what the designers do is that they take these things that are inherently recognisable, things like all the transitory spaces, the liminal spaces there are like they're like lifts, or they're like escalators, or they're like roller coasters. So these things are like recognisable, but they're recognisable in the wrong place, which again is like unsettling.
Yeah. This reminds me, I don't know if anybody is listening who had the experience of like having moved away from home for some long period of time, and then going back home, maybe like to your parents' place where you lived, or walking around your old town, and it's the same place, but there's just an inherently different quality to it.
Your old school.
Yeah.
Like you go back to like your primary school, or you go to school at night time. You said, didn't you, before?
Yeah, like a parents' evening.
Yeah.
Where like in the winter, and the sun's down, and you're in school, like you're looking at your classroom, and it's dark outside, and just an inherently different quality to it. Yeah, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah. Even though it's a space that's completely familiar, that you're familiar with, you know where everything is, you know which doors open which way, you know which doors are normally locked and which ones aren't, but like things are slightly not right. So yeah, that using that to really good effect in the BioShock games was really cool, and also with Blam, how we kind of design these spaces that. One of them looks like a communications tower. One of them looks like one of them where they were living looks like a massive, like a strawberry pot. Like we got like these little bits that sort of jut out where people were living in, like these little pockets. Yeah, like a punnet. Yeah, it was really weird, but just fascinating, man. Really fascinating. So yeah, I've had architecture on the brain. Yeah. So I remember years ago when they were saying about like with housing, like housing's really ugly. It's like, how do we make housing beautiful again? I don't really see a lot of sort of new developments. I don't really see like kind of like anything from sort of the 80s onwards as being like anything that's got, or even the 70s.
No.
You know, like most of the stuff that's around us, it's all very sort of functional. But what's funny is like we always used to kind of get the we used to have to kind of have this attitude that like, oh, like the brutalist architecture of the Eastern Bloc in the 60s, you know, it was just like these big concrete blocks and they were really inherently ugly. But I kind of look around now, it's like that's what we've got.
That's what we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, we're quite fortunate to live in a part of the country where a lot of the houses are old and built from stone.
Yeah.
And I work in stone as well, and it's just like this natural kind of product that's, you know, it's been chopped out of the earth, and then you've built this home, and they just look gorgeous.
They do, yeah, they do. That's a great shit. So, a lot of the local authorities, they're like, they will only allow developments to take place if they use the same
That's
stone
right,
that's
yeah.
been used in the.
And we have to deal with that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Peak District.
Yeah.
Is pretty hot on it. The High Peak and places like that. If you want to build, let's say you got land and you want to build a garage or you want to build whatever it is, they're going to be quite hard on you using the local stone.
Yeah.
And
like here, especially, like we're on the cusp of like two different bits of the Peak District. You've got Dark Peak and White Peak. White Peak being all limestone.
Limestone, yeah.
And Dark Peak being all millstone grit.
Grit, and yeah, New York, and yeah.
And those places kind of look different. You can tell. You go to a village in Dark Peak, you know, like a Castleton or you know, somewhere like that, like on the sort of the Manchester side of you know, head out towards Manchester and West Yorkshire peaks, and then you might go to somewhere in the White Peak, which is all much more you know, like on the Staffordshire border, which is all sort of limestone, and they just look different, they feel different. You know?
And bro, even within the Dark Peak, even from village to village, oh, I want Birchover stone, I want Stanton stone, I want Middleton. Even from, you know, like talking like miles apart, like, you know, single digit miles apart.
Yeah. And again, it kind of leans into this this feeling of sort of space and people. You know, like the people recognise the kind of stone that they live around. You know, it's local to them. It's immediately local to them in that sense, and it becomes like recognisable to people. You know, you kind of, it feels like home. You know, you go to you living somewhere in White Peak and you go back to a limestone place, like it feels like home. I went to a little village in Essex, and they'd used a lot of limestone around there, which they say apparently that stone is okay to travel south.
All right.
And build with, but if you quarry stone and take it north, it can't handle the climate. Apparently, that's what the guy that I was speaking to had said. That might be completely wrong, but this is at least what the guy from the Stone Council, the head of the Stone Council, a guy called Matt Robb, nice guy, and I'd been to this little village in Essex, and they built in limestone, and man, it was like being back home. It was like everything looked like it was like back home. You know, like these nice open fields, and it was very sort of countryside, very very rural. All the buildings made out of stone that I could recognise. Yeah, it was kind of weird, but also really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, like in these little villages, everything down to the tiling on the roof, the ridges on the roof, the paving in the garden, it's all the gate posts is all stone. Someone has hacked that out of the ground, and they've shaped it, they've cut it, and they've laid it, and you can, and it, the beauty of it shines through, the craftsmanship.
That's it. And then maybe that's sort of part of it. You know, I was talking about the craftsmanship of the churches, and you kind of see these details. You know, that all of these stones have got like their own little bit of quality to them. Yeah. Some might be slightly marbled. You know, you've got these nice like the weathering, the way that it weathers. Each stone block will weather slightly differently. You know, it's like when I hold my pipe up and say, oh, it's, you know, it's been sort of worn in a little bit now. It's been worn in because of the way I've held it. You know, it's mine. You know, I've had an impact on this. Like the people who've built those houses have had an impact on the way that those houses are designed, and the people that live in them recognise that. Yeah. Whereas when you're kind of working with, you know, like concrete, steel, and glass, you're never going to get that. No, true. It's always going to look like that until the point where it looks horrible, and you've got to take it down. And I'm minded a little bit of the there's a cathedral not a million miles where we live, and the cathedral itself is quite old. I think it's I think it's 18th century. Bits of it might be 18th century. I think the majority of it's 19th century. But that got quite badly hit in the Blitz, and they built on like an extension to it, like a little sort of vestibule. And it's the same stone, but it looks horrible. It's like it's just been bolted on.
Complete mismatch.
Yeah. And it was a little bit like that when I went to. I did some work at Trafford Town Hall, and you go past Trafford, like right outside Old Trafford for Man United fans. It was like the facade of the building. It's like an L-shaped or V-shaped as you look at it. So yeah, L-shaped facade. Beautiful old red brick. So again, it was. It's a mass-produced material, but it's clay that's been taken out of the soil. It's quite local. Red brick's quite common, fairly common round here, and again in the Peak. So it's quite a local material. And red brick's kind of got its own meaning in the UK, right? It's like red brick properties, It's like a little bit sort of not quite rural, but it's like suburban, But like bolted onto the back of it, it's just this massive glass building, just this big glass block, and it's jarring. Like it doesn't look anything like it's odd. It's such an odd couple. You'd never put it together. Yeah, it's mad. So that's what I've had on my mind lately. So it'd be good to hear anybody's kind of got some ideas. We've got so Duncan again, Devil's Advocate. When built, normal people were living in thatch and wallet. Yeah, it's right. Or in fear, seem maybe designed to keep people in line. Yeah, I heard that about intimidation. Like, is it intimidating? I'm sure that not to kind of. I've heard that argument, and I can kind of see that perspective, but I never ever see an old massive building and feel intimidated.
No, not
a church at least.
No,
even a castle, and they were built in some aspects to be intimidating.
Yeah.
Like I look at like Richmond Castle and Peveril Castle near us.
I think the word that I would choose is awesome
or inspiring. Yeah.
So like awesome now means like awesome.
Awesome, man.
But like the original meaning of the word is like it inspires awe. So it's similar to fear in a way, but I think what it's primarily about is placing you in relation to something that is bigger, greater, focused upwards.
Yeah.
So,
and when you think that one of the early stories in the Bible about the Tower of Babel, which is supposed to have been like a community project, right? The whole idea about that was quite, in terms of like modern morality tale, it's supposed to be pretty good, right? Like everybody coming together, they all speak the same kind of language. Yeah. They're building this massive building to become as high as God, right? But he smashes it to bits.
Yeah.
It's torn to pieces, and everybody's language then just becomes sort of separated out.
Into Scouse and Manc.
Yeah. And Glaswegian. I love Weegies. My star is an old Glaswegian. So yeah, I hear it. I hear this thing about intimidation. I never feel intimidated by play. I'm sure, but like back in the day, there would have been a bit of that. But yeah, I think awe is the word that I would go with.
This might sound off, but you know this, and I don't know if anyone else, but the Berlin where they do Van Morrison did Comfortably Numb.
Yeah.
So that's a great show, right?
Yeah.
And there's
is it on the Brandenburg Gate,
right? And there's a when the guitarist does the solo, he's up on like right a catwalk, and you can hear it coming through the speaker, and it does something to you. A bit like what I must imagine it's like to be walking home and you like see a predator. Do you know what I mean? You kind of stop and it's like like big and it's like, and I think that is like kind of a pale reflection of what that feeling that you get from looking at like the La Sagrada Familia or the the Winter Palace.
Yeah, 100%. And also just coming back again to the point about Wattle and Daub houses, like it's interesting, but like a lot of the Anglo-Saxon churches of that era, and maybe a little bit before that, would have been much smaller. They would have been built out of materials that were readily available.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Air Chapel.
Air Chapel, exactly. It's a tiny little place, so it's not like it's a massive place, which kind of that aspect of the architecture is not to kind of draw your eye upwards. It's more that it was a central hub with it, but it would have looked, in comparison to what people were living in, it would have been really beautiful. But also as well, in terms of the the comparison that those buildings, typically in Russia, when they would go out into the sticks, there would already be a monastic skeet out there, like right in the wilds, right in the middle of the forests, cut off from everybody else. But the people would go and see these monastics. They wanted to be around these monastics. They wanted to take services. It's not an easy thing to do when you're living hundreds of miles, like 500, 600 miles from the nearest church. So what would they do? They would make themselves a parish. They would go into the woods and they would build a church out of wood in a day. It was a community activity. You remember the film we watched, V? The church in that was like very much the same. That was very typical.
Yeah, wooden structure.
Wooden structure, built quickly, built out of materials that were readily available, and the community, the parish, built it.
Yeah.
So it was for them. It wasn't about intimidation. It was about it was a community thing. It was slightly different. Okay, different than atheists walked away from the church and the minister. Whoa, yeah. One thing I can definitely say about that, Duncan, is there's a bit in the in scripture, because I had to do a fair bit of reading before I got Tonsured Reader, and it basically says, those of you who are planning to become ordained in the church in any capacity, but especially for priests and above, you are spiritually responsible for the parish, right? So if you goof up, you've got to answer for that. And for those people who blow it, it's better for them that they have a millstone placed around their neck and they're thrown into the sea. But it's not. I'd love to sit here and say like, oh, I never hear that. I hear it plenty. Just like it is, like my missus is a teacher. There's people who go into teaching. They should never be going into teaching. Yeah. They're just not cut out. They're not the personality. They're not the right fit for that job. Yeah. It takes a real personality type to be a bloody good priest. Yeah, man. All I can say is that's fucked up, man. Yeah. And that's regrettable. And whoever said that dude is gonna bear the responsibility for that. Yeah, totally. But yeah, it's been great. Yeah, it's good to have you with us, Duncan. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you with us and join a bowl. Billy Kennesinio, architecture while visiting the country, personality and flavour. Yeah, is America really commercialised? Do you know what? I don't know if I always kind of imagine it will be, and I'm sure in the major cities it is. Yeah. But I mean, we're backwoods guys, aren't we? Yeah. I mean, we look at places like Tennessee and I look at all the like where there were moon shining. I think, oh man, that looks amazing. Yeah. That's not. Imagine getting a cave out there. Yeah. Imagine going in a cabin. 100%. Get a cabin out in the woods. And like, oh. I mean, I've only been to Orlando, and as I remember, it was quite commercialized. But like we get all the films, and like we see the Midwest, and like Maine, and like Stephen King film stuff, and it looks like the white. Kind of like the white picket fence and like the colonial kind of houses. Yeah. I love that. And Lovecraft as well. He's big on the on like the East Coast, Northeast America, isn't he? Like the East Coast stuff about the like the old colonial buildings. He always talks about like old colonial properties around like Arkham, like Maine and exactly and New England. New England, yeah. Well, I guess we've got a leg up because we're a much older country, so we've got architecture from hundreds of years ago. We've got the Roman occupation. We've still got, so we've got that going for us. But America, I think, like I'm not any authority. Like I said, I've only been to Florida once. But from what we get through the media, it's got its own charm. It's got its distinct charm. And I look at the old westerns and stuff and think, oh man, I look at the canyons and the desert. I look at the desert and the mountains. Like Cowboy Kent Rollins, I love his channel. He's out there making got his skillets out and his
Yeah.
little push along cart with his oven. And like, oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And I think there is definitely like some charm to that. I'm all about that. It was another the architecture. Yeah, we are really blessed. I mean, and even like in some of the places which are really ruined. I mean, going back to the Roman period, or like you go around to somewhere like Wroxeter Roman city in the West Midlands, is that sort of Shropshire way, and you can still see like the remnants of the cloistered walls and the like the bathhouse. That's really cool. Bath, you go and see the old Roman bath. That's really cool.
York,
man, yeah, of course. And even so Chester. I had a day around Chester a few years ago working. Just wandering around the city. I'm such a dullard, right? I wander around the city like, oh, it's an amphitheatre. What's that doing here? It's like, yeah, it's a Roman amphitheatre. I never knew.
Yeah, it's wild.
I never knew. Yeah, it was amazing. So like, yeah, there would have been like gladiators and like people singing and people speaking and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it was wild, absolutely wild. So yeah, you're right. You know, we are.
And I mean, Constantine the Great, his coronation was in York, right?
York.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's basically a Yorkie.
Yeah, Yorkshire, yeah.
So no wonder he won. Just saying. But yeah, we're lucky. We're very blessed with that. You know, with our sort of heritage and stuff. It's doesn't go unappreciated here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So we're hoping to try and get a few more in fairly regularly, aren't we? So it'd be nice to get another cast in for May.
Yeah.
We're talking. We've already kind of had a bit of a conflab about where we're going to take it next time.
Yeah.
We want to go back into sort of films.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do like a series of sort of modern Greek tragedy style films, but we'd maybe like to start with Tony.
Yeah.
Antonio Montana.
Yeah.
Of Cuba.
Yeah.
And we'll go for the old Scarface.
De Palma.
De Palma, yeah. Brian De Palma. Oliver Stone who wrote it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we maybe like to maybe take a look at that one first, but we'd go for a few of these, like these sort of kind of cautionary tales a little bit maybe.
I think the mob flick is mainly a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I always found Casino a bit like that.
Yeah.
And that always kind of drops to pieces. Maybe we could do that as one of them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
See what the feeling is. So yeah, but I mean, hit us up if you've got some ideas. You know, films that you want us to take a look at. You know, certainly around that sort of topic of like modern Greek tragedy type tales, cautionary tales. We can take a look, but Scarface is going to be the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. So big thanks to HD and BK, absolute stalwarts in again. Yeah, as always. Thank you so much for being in. We've had a blast, and I think we're going to finish off this ride and have another little smoke.
Sounds good to me.
So yeah,
God bless.